Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Healthcare Education Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. F. Scott Feil, and I've got with me longtime friend Chris Varela, who is going to catch us up. We try to do these as frequently as we can, but student loans still an issue. A lot of weird, wild, and crazy stuff going on. Chris, how the heck are you, and what the hell is going on?
I'm doing well. I would be doing better if we had a consistent student loan repayment system, but we haven't had that in the past, I would say 3 years or so.
Yeah.
And it is a shame because ultimately it's like I think the Department of Education, which is the we'll say the big brother of all of this stuff, um, they're the final decision maker at the end of the day. I think what they've been trying to do is simplify the repayment system.
Right.
But as what happens in anything in life, sometimes when the goal is simplicity, you accidentally make things a little more complex and confusing. And that's unfortunately what's happening, at least for the time being. I mean, it could be something where maybe they take a couple steps back before they take big steps forward. I mean, we'll have to see. There's a lot of things that could happen in the future, but
I
um,
thought the save plan was pretty decent. Like I was
mhm.
okay with it, right? But we're in an election year and it's all hitting the fan. So catch us up on this craziness that's going on.
Well, really long story short, because I'll kind of give you the past year and a half worth of short-term history and kind of how we got to where we're at. But it really comes down to the safe plan is just it might be too good, right? Because it's a three-party system. There's the government that issues the loans, there's the borrower that takes those loans, and then there's the college that charges the tuition that requires the loan amounts, right? So long story short, what we see with a lot of our PT cases that have, we'll say, a debt to income ratio of 2 to 1 or more, they're generally able to pay their loan off with significantly less money than they borrowed, which means that the college is getting all their money, the borrower is getting a really good plan, but the government's kind of getting the short end of the stick, right? So they're losing money, right? So if you do we care that the government's losing money? Probably not. I mean, it depends on everybody's political views, but at the end of the day, like if you take the government out of it, like if I gave you a loan, Scott, and then you paid me back with $40,000 less than what you originally borrowed, I would probably never give you money again, right? Now you're the man. I love you. I would try to help you out, but like just logically speaking, it doesn't make sense to give out loans if you're going to be losing money consistently. So that's kind of what the save plan was presenting for a lot of borrowers. Now, if we rewind the tapes about a year and a half, so if we went to like early 2023, the Biden administration worked really closely with the Department of Education and they introduced the idea of the SAVE plan. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but about, again, early 2023, when they were talking about the SAVE plan, the payments were going to be 5% of their discretionary income for 20 years. And the payment, and the plan was only going to be open to undergrad professionals. So that means no PT that has loans from PT school, they wouldn't qualify for the SAVE plan. So that's where it was originally at, which I see you shaking your head. That was my thought too. I was like, I think the people that really need more relief or help and assistance is the people that have grad loans,
Right.
especially in healthcare, probably excluding some physicians and surgeons, but a lot of healthcare, nurses, PTs, OTs, etc. But anyway, then fast forward to mid 2023, the Biden administration talked about the loan cancellation bill, right? So $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 loan cancellation. Ultimately, we all know the Supreme Court shot that down for many reasons. In my opinion, I feel like one of the biggest reasons is that there is no free money in our government. So if they're going to cancel debt, they have to get that money from somewhere. So they were ideally going to increase taxes to the general public. And I think whether you're for it or against it, we're always going to have a little bit of a capitalistic approach
Yeah.
in our financial system, because the American dream is that we want to make our money, we want to retain that money, we don't want to pay half of our money in taxes. So ultimately, the $10,000 to $20,000 loan cancellation was denied, and then right after that was denied, they opened up the SAVE plan to graduate professionals, which I thought was a big win, and I think it was the Biden administration's way of saying, hey, if they're not going to do our cancellation this way, maybe we can try to sneak it in this way. So they released the SAVE plan, or they released applications out for the SAVE plan. Now, theoretically, as soon as they did that, Congress kind of ran in and said, hold on, we're not opposed. So again, this is Congress speaking. They're saying we're not opposed to the SAVE plan. We just didn't really get to do a congressional review, and this did not go through the proper process of approvals to get this implemented into our system. So, and that's just the unfortunate reality, is that, again, like I hate bringing politics into things, but like that's just what it is that there were steps that were skipped. to
Yeah.
try to force and rush the implementation. And now we're kind of dealing with that now. But anyway, when the Congress came in and they were like, hey, we're not opposed to it. We need to do a congressional review. This needs to come down to a majority vote. But what we'll do is we'll allow you to open up the applications. We'll allow you to process applications and approve people for the plan, but give us until July 1st of 2024 to see if we're actually going to implement it or not. Right now, again, this is kind of why people over the past year, if they've been on the SAFE plan and they've been accruing interest, even though the SAFE plan is not supposed to be accruing interest, is because the benefits of the SAFE plan wouldn't have taken place until July 1st of 2024. Right. So we've gotten a lot of phone calls of people asking that. So I wanted to add that in. So anyway, that's where we were at about a year ago. Now, June 30th of this year, 2024, so the day before July 1st of the implementation, Congress came in and they blocked the SAFE plan from going forward. Now, that doesn't mean that they got rid of the SAFE plan. It just means that they came in and they said, hold on, we didn't do our congressional review. We need more time to do this, so we're going to pause everything. Now, by July 3rd of this year, so a couple days after, they lifted the block, and then by mid-July, the block got reinstated, or they call it a stay, got reinstated, and then that's where we're currently at. So long story short, the SAFE plan is either going to happen or it is not going to happen.
Right.
That's all we know at this point. I do think, and I think a lot of people that understand the system really well and understand kind of the costs for a lot of borrowers. Again, it's such a good plan for the borrowers. But I do think that because the government ultimately loses a lot of money on it, and unfortunately the process of getting it implemented was a little bit of a botch job. Unfortunately, that's really the biggest unfortunate thing here. But I think because of all that, I think the likely event is that the SAFE plan goes away and people will likely be reverted back to the previous plan that they were on.
Yeah, I mean, I just got an email the other day saying, "Oh, you're in forbearance again," and it's like, wait, what? Like, I didn't do anything.
So here's a lot of, and I'm kind of sharing this opinion with another professional in the space that I have a lot of respect for. It's my opinion, and I think again other people that understand this really well. It's my opinion that the Department of Education is just not acting legally, and here's why. Right now, if you were on the SAFE plan, which in a lot of cases people are, if you're on the SAFE plan currently, right now, you're in an administrative forbearance, and there's no way to get out of it. You can't apply for a separate plan to get off the plan. You can't even get into a standard repayment plan.
We're in a holding pattern, essentially.
Yeah, you're stuck.
Student loan purgatory.
And you're stuck, but you're also accruing interest during this forbearance period.
Right.
So again, same idea. Imagine I give somebody a loan and I'm like, hey, you're not going to make any payments right now. If you do make payments, they're not going to count towards your 20, 25, or 10-year PSLF tax or forgiveness plan. So I'm going to give out this loan. You're not making any payments, but I'm going to keep charging you interest, and I'm not going to allow you to switch to another plan to actually make payments and have it count towards your forgiveness, right? So it's weird, right? If you would have told me a year ago that the Department of Education was going to be making decisions that they're currently making, I would say, no, that doesn't sound legal, but that's what's happening right now. Because you can't block the right of a borrower's ability to make decisions on their loan, but right now that's what's happening. So they're literally just stuck. Also, another thing that's unique is that the pay-as-you-earn plan was supposed to be phased out July 1st of this year as well.
Yeah.
So now you have people that never signed up for pay-as-you-earn because they found the SAFE plan being better. And now if the SAFE plan gets taken away, and keep in mind, like the pay-as-you-earn plan before the SAFE plan was almost always the best option for most of our PT clients with the debt to income ratios that we mentioned. But now you have this theoretical, or this position where if they get rid of the SAFE plan and they got rid of the pay-as-you-earn plan, now people are kind of SOL because now they don't have the best one or two options at their disposal. So I have to imagine, again, I'm not an attorney, and I will never claim to be. I will never give legal advice, but I have to imagine if I was an attorney or a big law firm, I would be licking my chops and waiting for the Department of Education to make their decision and just pick it apart. And I think there could be class action lawsuits here. I don't mean to be extreme. This is just my opinion. It's very frustrating. If I sound frustrated, it's because I'm a little frustrated by the system, and it's just, there's a lot of uncertainty. And I kind of, again, sharing this opinion with another professional in the industry, I think the Department of Education is trying to simplify things or trying to make this an easier system to understand, but by they're kind of getting yanked around a little bit. And then I think that with some of the involvement of the Biden administration, there's just been things that have not been done the right way. And it's ultimately just creating a very complex system. And I don't think anybody would disagree with that, because
No?
everybody's kind of has their hands up and like, they're like, what is going on? Why am I in forbearance? What does this mean? Why am I accruing interest if I'm in the save plan? Oh, if the save plan gets taken away, like then what?
Right.
Right. And it's like, if I was originally on the pay as you earn plan, are they going to reopen that plan to put me back onto it? Like
Yeah.
there's just a lot of weird things going on. I think the positive is that there could be some decisions in the very short term here. Like theoretically, Congress could they could make a decision today,
Yeah.
September 5th, 2024. Like they could come back today and make a decision, which will then kind of start the process of simplifying some of this stuff. But maybe, but yeah, it's very weird. It's very
Yeah.
odd.
Yeah. I mean, again, unprecedented times here, right? Starting all the way back at COVID to present, right? I mean, things just got wild and crazy. And again, this is all just opinion, right? But I'm in higher education and I'm really struggling with the Department
Yeah.
of Education. And I know they're trying to
Yeah.
do the right thing, but I'm even just talking down to like curriculum and like when we're learning things. Like we need to be learning about financial literacy
Mhm.
in middle school, in high school, not when you get to grad school. That's way too late. And it's literally changing and affecting lives and decisions on
Yeah.
purchasing things like houses, like cars, like starting a family. These are people's lives here, and people are literally
Yeah.
going into professions where they want to help people and they have skill sets to do that. And
Mhm.
yet they can't really make the right decisions or decisions that benefit them per se, because they end up having all these weird student loan issues going on, and they have to get the money to make the student loan payments, but we
Yeah.
don't know what those payments are, when they're going to be.
Yeah.
It's insane. And it's
Yeah.
really bad for the healthcare professions right now. And again, I don't mean to throw another wrench in the deal here, but like we're in an election year. We got a couple
Yeah.
months coming up here. What do you foresee happening? Like, I mean, again, just opinion, throwing it out there. Like, project what the heck could go on here in these next few months. Again, not to get overly political, but it is an election
Yeah.
year. It is.
It is tricky. I do know that on the Republican side, the Trump administration has talked about restructuring the Department of Education.
Yeah.
Um, well, they originally talked about getting rid of the Department of Education, but again, the Trump administration they use strong words. I don't know what that would look like. I don't know how you would get rid of it. I don't.
Yeah.
I think what that meant is that they would restructure it, and
Right.
I do agree that absolutely needs to get done. And again, if we just literally just talked about the past 13 months. It's like it's been a
Chaos.
mess. And it needs to be restructured. It needs to be simplified. Um, it needs to be more efficient. Um, I'm not aware on the Democrat side. I haven't heard anything that they're talking about with student loans. I do know that 3.5 years ago, it was a big stool or a big leg on the stool of their campaign. And I think so with the politics involved right now, I don't know if this is actually happening, but if I had to guess, I would say politically speaking, the Republican side is probably trying to not get the save implemented until potentially, or they're probably trying to push back the congressional review until after the election so that they can say, hey, look, this party didn't make good on this promise that they made, and it was a big promise. So like politically, that makes sense. I don't agree with that agenda, but I mean, I don't agree with some of the stuff on both sides. But then on the other side, on the Democrat side, I have to imagine that they're trying to rush this review to get the plan implemented, so they can say, hey, look, this is
Yeah, we accomplished
that
something.
we accomplished this. We promised that we were going to do this, and we did it. And right now, the narrative is the opposite. Right now, the narrative is that, hey, we promised this thing and then we implemented it, but we didn't do it the right way, and now it's getting taken away. So now it's like you're dangling a carrot and you're taking it away from the people. People get that. I think most people, again, it is an election year. Some of the politics stuff is frustrating, but I think at the end of the day, it's like most people, they see what's happening, right?
Yeah.
If you're promised something and then it doesn't happen, it's like you don't ignore that,
Yeah.
right? And if you do, then you should take another look at it. But
Well,
there's
it's an
been a
elephant
lot
in the
of
room
that.
right now, right? I mean,
Yeah,
student loans are an issue. It's a huge issue.
yeah, and I think it will continue. And we tell people all the time, um, theoretically, there could be big changes to the federal student loan repayment system every 4 years when presidential administrations change. It
Yeah.
is no longer just a form of debt. I mean, that is what it is, but it's also become a social issue. It's a political topic, and it will be a topic that will be discussed during election years with the main goal of attracting young voters,
Yeah.
right? Because the younger generation, they're one of their biggest financial problems. And well, this is a couple years ago, their biggest financial problem was student loan debt. Now the biggest problem is student loan debt. They can't afford houses. They can't afford to start a family, or they feel like they can't. So again, there's a lot of crazy things going on. But with the election year, again, not getting into politics, I think people really need to take a really long, hard look at things and figure out, what candidate do I think will be best for me retaining more money, and enjoying my money, and kind of getting to that American dream of again, being financially independent, and buying a house, and starting a family, and being able to afford groceries, and doing all those things comfortably. I think people really need to think about that. And also the other thing too is, we all want our, I say this nonstop during consultations and whatnot. We all want our loans canceled. We all want them to go away, but we also want low taxes. And we're unfortunately not going to have that. We're not going to have it. We're not going to have both. So what we help people do specifically, not selling our service or anything, but like what we do is we help people find the balance where you can minimize your payments into your student loans, while also enjoying the money that you're making. So again, with some of these forgiveness plans, without loan cancellation, but with the forgiveness plans, you can still have a very efficient plan where you're minimizing monthly payments and maximizing the money that you're retaining, so that you can do other things with your money, like investing for retirement, putting money into down payment on home, starting a family, redoing a nursery when you're expecting your first kid, all these exciting things that do cost money. You want to be able to do those things. But in terms of just getting loan like canceled, you have to understand that will have a very negative impact on taxation. Same thing with some of the mortgage stuff they're doing. If they're going to give basically stipend, or give these like theoretical like grants for purchases of like 25% of a down payment on a house, what do you think the market's going to do? They're just going to increase. Like, I think people really need to stop taking things like at face value, and really understand how the big picture works, and how some of these decisions impact future things, because there are things that have been introduced politically that 5 years from now there will be very negative consequences. But in the short term, it might look good to young voters because they want to buy a house. So again, it's hard not to bring some of the politics in, because it's just totally shoved in our faces right now. And yeah, I think this upcoming election, especially on the student loan side, I think it's really important. And I think ultimately what we want is, we need a simpler system. We don't really want an ever changing system, because that's just going to keep it, that's going to continue the complexity. We want something that is consistent, something that makes sense, something that benefits all parties involved. So colleges, borrowers, and the government, like all three of them need to be happy. Otherwise there's going to be a lot of legislative risk. And I think that if we can find that balance, we'll be in good shape. The question is, how are we going to get there? And nobody unfortunately knows.
Right. Well, and it's multifactorial, right? It's not just political. It's not just the Department of Education. It's also, the schools and universities. The cost is going up, and there's nobody to check that. There's nobody to say there's a cap or a ceiling.
Yeah.
So they charge whatever the hell they want, and they're going to keep doing that until they can't, right?
Well, I think there have been bills that have been talked about. I don't know if I don't really follow anything politically too much. But I think there's been bills that have been talked about that do kind of cap the level of annual increasing in the cost of tuition. But it kind of feeding back into some of the legislative risk with the SAVE plan. If you're going to create a plan where a borrower is going to take on $200,000 of debt, therefore the college is getting paid $200,000, and then you're going to create a plan where the borrower might be able to pay that loan back in full with $150,000. Right. So the college got all 200,000. They're happy. The borrower pays their loan off at like a negative interest rate, because they're paying their loan off at a $50,000 discount. So they're happy, but the government's losing money. Right. So we know that the government's losing money, there's going to be change. But on the other side, if the college is going to charge a tuition amount, and they know that borrowers are not going to be paying back that amount or anything close to that amount anyway, because it's not even based off their loan amount, doesn't that feel like a very obvious incentive to further inflate the cost of higher education?
Yeah, I'm getting
and
paid.
I think
I don't care about anyone else, right?
and I think that's a big issue that we see now, is that that's what's happening, is that if we're going to have a plan that incentivizes the further, like an even more intense rate of inflation in higher education, like that makes sense to change. Because I think we all can agree that the core problem to all of this that we're even talking about is the fact that higher education has inflated at the rate that it has, right? It's the cost of higher education. That is the core problem of why you and I are talking about this, and why the SAFE plan was potentially implemented, and why income-driven repayment exists. Why that hasn't been figured out, I don't know. It doesn't say nobody, either party, right, left, whatever. Neither party is talking about addressing the core problem of
We're not getting to the root
addressing.
cause.
Correct. Yeah, they're just trying to fit, like that was years ago when they were talking about all the loan cancellation stuff. And I think we talked about this on one of our previous podcasts. It's a band-aid fix, right? You can cancel this debt, but guess what? Tomorrow there's going to be a new borrower that's going to borrow the same amount of money, and they're not going to get any of the forgiveness stuff. So it's like these are band-aid fixes. We really need solutions at the core problem. And I almost, in my mind, I'm like, I hate that I'm even saying this, because I don't have any solutions, and I hate bringing up problems with not having any solutions. I don't know what the solutions would be. I have to believe that hopefully at some point we have government officials that can take a look at some of this stuff and say, this is what needs to happen.
Well, Chris, again, I love having you on, man. We're going to keep doing it, because every time there's updates and new info, we need your insight. But I'm going to give you one last question here that I think, the answer for now, or the question, I guess, for now is like, all right, so not knowing, having all this uncertainty, it is what it is. How do you prepare for this? What do you do? Like, in my mind, I'm just going to assume I'm going to have student loans, and let's figure out a way to, like you said, minimize, what we're paying on them, and then maximize the amount of money we can hold on to and keep and invest and have fun with, right? So how do
Yeah.
we prepare? What should we do for the next 6 months, 8 months, 12 months? If you're, a student who's graduating or just graduated and you have student loans, how do we kind of navigate this? What do we do?
Well, I would say in the short term, for the people that are on forbearance and they're getting spooked by the interest accumulation, I would say if you are a candidate for loan forgiveness, don't be too spooked by the interest accumulation. Enjoy the $0 payments while you can, maximize the value of your dollar in other areas, and just wait until they make some decisions to figure out what you want to do. But don't lose sleep over it. Again, if you're a forgiveness candidate, don't start making payments now. I would consider that a slight waste of money, or a devalued dollar expense there. But yeah, I mean, it's really tricky, because if you wanted to do something right now and you wanted to make a decision on your loan, you do not have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
So you can't do anything. That's a hard thing to tell our clients, is because they come to us for answers and we say, well, this is where we're at. This is what ideally I thought you would be able to do in this scenario, but you can't do anything. You're stuck. And that's why I think that, again, the Department of Education is not acting legally, because I don't understand how you can block the right of an individual's ability to make financial decisions on their loans. So that's for people that are like currently kind of freaking out a little bit. I would say don't freak out, just be patient. For new grads or upcoming grads, I mean, once you graduate, you have a 6-month grace period. So hopefully that's more than enough time for all this to get wired out. But ultimately speaking, the best thing that you can really do is take time to really understand the system. And most people don't want to hear that, because they don't want to do that,
Right.
in which
Do the
case
work.
that's when they come to us, right? Which, again, that's another thing I would recommend, is, again, find a professional that specializes in this space, kind of like an attorney. Like if you have a friend that's an attorney, if you just have like an acquaintance that can give legal advice and there's something weird going on, sometimes you can just give that person a call or an email and just say, hey, I saw this, like, what the hell does this mean? And they can kind of make it make sense within that realm. That's exactly what we do. We get, especially in the past couple of months, we've getting nonstop calls and emails from clients and old clients that maybe didn't become clients, but we worked with them in the past, and they're just like, hey, can you make sense of all this? And we let them know exactly what's going on and where we're at, and then what we can do moving forward, which, again, unfortunately right now is pretty much nothing. But in general, the best thing you can do right now is just educate yourself, or try to educate yourself. But ultimately, whether the system gets simplified or more complex, utilize professional services in the space. because that's going to be your best bet. Same thing. It's like we were just talking offline. It's like if I don't know, having issues with my lower back, it's like I can watch stuff on YouTube and I can try stretches and exercises based off what I see on Instagram pages and stuff like that. And like that might help me a little bit, but like ultimately what I need to do is I need to go and work with like a rehab expert. I'm going to get more value there. So I'm not going to compare PTs and chiropractors, but like in that scenario, it's like those would be the two types of professionals that I would want to consider working with to help solve that problem that I'm having. Right. So yeah, I think that's what I would recommend. So again, in the short term, just kind of hang tight and try to be as patient as you can. Don't lose sleep over the interest that's accumulating. Just focus on enjoying and maximizing the value of your dollar, and just know that at some point payments are going to resume, and you're going to need to have your budget in order to afford those payments. Because if you don't, that's not a good situation to be in.
Yeah, no, I that's the approach I'm taking. Find the ballpark estimate of what you're going to have to pay, recognize and acknowledge you're going to probably have to pay student loans to some extent, and then keep your finger on the pulse,
Yeah.
educate yourself. You got to do the work. You got to learn, because I don't know. I don't want to know. I don't want to do this. So I go to the professionals because I need help making sense of it. So you got to
Yeah.
do everything you can, find all the resources you can, and do the deep dive and the deep work, and then bring on a professional and hammer it out. Because again, I'm just going to assume that the government's not going to figure it out, and I have to just do it myself, right? So
Yeah.
student loans are student loans. You're going to have them. Let's figure out a ballpark you're going to have to pay, and then figure out how to make that money,
Yeah.
through your 9 to 5. Or again, I like the idea of adding an extra side job or a side business, right? To
Mm-hmm.
kind of increase your income, because again, you can only budget so much. There's a floor to how much you can budget. You still need money for a mortgage, for groceries, gas, car, all the things. That's your bottom line. You cannot budget yourself below your bottom line. So
Yeah.
the other end is the top end, and making more money and more revenue, right? More income. So that's my recommendation too. So I appreciate that. And like I said, Chris, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming on. We love having you. We'll definitely be talking to you again. My guess is shortly after the election, or in the new
Yeah.
year. Yeah, where can people find you? Where can they reach out if they want more information on your services and how you can help with these student loan issues?
Yeah, you can always find us on Instagram. So it's just Varela Financial on Instagram. Our website is www.varelafinancial.com. And you can just search me, Chris Varela, on LinkedIn. So there's a lot of different ways to follow us and kind of keep tabs on what we're doing. But I would say we're most active on Instagram. So that's probably the best place to follow us. And then yeah, just piggybacking off of what you were saying, Scott, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be a part of the podcast, and have been for years now. So yeah, thanks for having me. And yeah, hopefully we'll be talking again about this pretty soon, and we'll have some more beneficial news and more. Yeah, I guess maybe we'll have
At the very
better
least,
news
clarity,
next time we
some
speak.
clarity,
Yes,
right?
clarity would be nice.
Well, thanks so much, Chris. As always, we'll put those links in the show notes so everyone can find you. Look forward to chatting again, like you said, hopefully on the positive side for a while.
Absolutely.